we face in the community, and I do want to duly acknowledge that. But I think that there's a lot of accomplishments that we could be very proud of as a community. One, of course, being this community center. I look around, and folks have not only spent their Saturday to listen to speakers, but I'm hearing, just kind of overhearing people eager to take action, to be more inclusive as a community, and to really build on the passion that everyone shares and ensure that everybody moves forward. So I think that that's very gratifying for me to hear. This is one of many type of programming that I get to attend throughout the country, and I just got to tell you that, well, you might think that I say this at every occasion, but I honestly think that this is one of the best attended, most passionate group of folks who are willing to roll up their sleeves and continue the legacy of this work. So why don't you all give yourselves a hand? Essentially, I think one of the things that I was going to talk about also in the Google Hangout with literally hundreds and thousands of like-minded folks like yourselves is that there is a need for the movement to continue, and it is and we need to be inclusive about our, not only who do we include in our work, to say, should we have Hmong people with us, should we have South Asian folks with us, but we have to be very inclusive and comprehensive and holistic about our analysis and our willingness to fight for justice for everyone. So some of the things that I want to challenge you all, as I am challenging myself and other folks are also working to this end, is to ensure that we are not forgetting women's issues, women's rights issues, right? We're not forgetting about the dreamers who yet do not have the opportunity to pursue a higher education. And let's not pretend like there are no LGBT folks in the APA community. Helen Zia, for instance, I just want to point out, for a long time she didn't come out. And before, everybody pretty much thought that she, she's a very, strong leader, and even after she's come out, she's a very strong leader, which is really good to see. But let's make sure that we support everyone who are out, and that who are among us who are fighting for other causes. And then the other thing that I just wanted to point out in terms of our national work is that OCA essentially is a membership-based organization, and as you'll see, a lot of my colleagues, they all specialize in different areas. So what we try to do with OCA is to leverage on our membership, and then of course with my other colleagues, they may specialize in a legal area like the Asian American Justice Center, and we all have to work together, and we do every day. And our hope is that that is replicated throughout the country, and I'm gratified to hear that that is in fact one of the best practices that are happening here in Detroit. So I want to congratulate you all for your fine work, and I think together, locally and nationally, we can do some great things.
On behalf of Asian Pacific Americans of Progress and all our local national partners, welcome to Vincent Chen's. My name is Curtis Chen. I'm the board president of as writer-produced award-winning documentary Vincent Who.
Hey everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in and showing up and being part of the discussion. This is just really incredible, and this whole setup, and I want to thank APAP for inviting me to moderate. Vincent Chen, his murder, this case, it's very personal to me, and I'm really just honored to be part of the dialogue, so thank you so much. So without further ado, let's start this panel, and I'd like to welcome my panelists here in Los Angeles, Congresswoman Judy Chu. My first question is for you, Congresswoman. Thank you for your recent efforts to pass a resolution formally acknowledging the racism of exclusion laws. And can you talk about this history of xenophobia in the United States? And this perception of Asian Americans as foreigners and how that impacted the Vincent Chin case.
Well, thank you. I can't tell you how overwhelmed I felt on Monday standing on the floor of Congress when we finally got the bill passed expressing regret for the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, considering the fact that on that very same floor 130 years prior, the Chinese were vilified. I thought to myself, how far we've come. And so I think about 3 dates in history: 1882, 1982, and 2012. 1882, the Chinese came here for a better life, but instead were called racial slurs, were spat upon in the streets, and were even brutally murdered. But what made matters worse was that the U.S. economy soured and Chinese immigrants became scapegoats. In Congress in 1882, the members were practically competing with each other to pass the most discriminatory law. And in fact, they outright made speeches on the floor calling the Chinese an invading race and aliens with sordid and unrepublican habits. The rhetoric laid the groundwork for the Chinese Exclusion Act, resulting in 60 years of discrimination and disenfranchisement for the Chinese American community. And then the year 1982, exactly 1 century later, we had another economic decline in the U.S. economy with the auto industry. This time, the anger was directed against the Japanese. In Detroit, there were acts of vandalism against Japanese-made cars, threats against Japanese car owners, the burning of the Japanese flag in protest. And young Vincent Chin was about to celebrate his wedding when 2 white unemployed auto workers chased him down, bashed his head in with a baseball bat, and blamed him and, in essence, all Asian Americans for taking away his job. Vincent was the tragic victim of the perpetual foreigner stereotype and of rampant xenophobic scapegoating. And now we come to the year 2012. Earlier this year, in the same state where Vincent was murdered 30 years ago, a candidate for the U.S. Senate named Pete Hoekstra put out an ad. An obviously American-born Asian woman is in a rice paddy with a coolie hat on, riding on her bike. She gets to the camera and she says gleefully, "Isn't it great that we get to steal your American jobs?" And this ad wasn't alone. The Washington Post found that there were at least 250 political ads of this type in 2010. But I tell you, in terms of the reaction in 2012, how things have changed. We know that in an economic downturn, people who are innocent can become scapegoats. But now we have the infrastructure and the strength to fight back. When the Hoekstra ad ran, the community spoke out and condemned the ad for being stereotypical and offensive. And the Congressional Asian Pacific Caucus, CAPAC, released a statement right away. I went on CNN to denounce the ad and demand an apology. The national response to the ad was very harsh and unprecedented, and Hoekstra had to take down the website and the ad finally. We should consider that a triumph. Today we have national advocacy groups like Asian Pacific Americans for Progress, AAJC, OCA, many others. We have elected officials and community leaders who hold a seat at the table. And with this growing voice, we are able to speak out against xenophobia and scapegoating and educate others about the dangers of this kind of rhetoric. We must make sure that what happened to Vincent Chin never happens again.
When we look back at the case, at the Vincent Chin case, one thing that I think people really forget is that at the time, there was no real template or example for Asian Americans on how to deal with something like this, how to get together, organize, and fight. This wasn't something that Asian folks were getting mixed up in on a regular basis. Tom, we know that the OCA has been a really strong advocacy organization, building bridges for Chinese Americans and Asian Americans for a long time. how far has the community come in terms of being able to respond to these kinds of incidents? And what role do advocacy groups play in combating not just hate crimes and bullying, but other issues facing the community?
Again, my name is Tom Hayashi. I'm the Executive Director of the OCA National Center, and I actually am joining all of you here in Detroit, Michigan, and where there is another event that just is concluding with this wonderful program that's hosted by the American Citizens for Justice and the Association for Chinese Americans, which is our local affiliate here. And I think in a lot of ways, we've come a long, long way, but we have much more to go. And here's why I think that. I think that in a lot of ways, we have raised the awareness thanks to more robust introduction of curricula in middle school, high school, as well as in colleges with the Asian American Studies programs. We also have been able to build our chapters through our OCA network and other colleagues that have affiliates, and to build this network throughout the country. And I think most of all, I think we've been able to also build bridges in collaboration, not only within our community, but also to be part of the larger civil rights movement. And that is a very key point of where we need to continue to grow in. We've also invested and continue to invest in emerging leaders, and I think that we need to continue to do that. And also, I think that we need to continue to connect with our institutional and policy-making bodies. And I think that the Private Dan Chen case in particular, or the military reform issue, is one of many recent examples where it would take essentially a village of organizations to do this work. So I'll just say very quickly that OCA right now is focused on engaging with the military institutions, with branches of the military. Our colleague from AAJC, they're really focusing on the policy advocacy. And then, of course, we have some strong champions in Congress, like Congresswoman Judy Chu, that makes it possible for all of us to win. So it is a collaborative effort, and we need to continue to build on those components.
I'm the President and Executive Director of the Asian American Justice Center. We're based here in Washington, D.C. We're also a member of the Asian American Center for Advancing Justice. It is, first of all, a great honor for me to be here with all of you and to be part of this panel. As an organization that was founded to really address the direct injustices that was brought about in the terrible miscarriage of justice in the Vincent Chin case, AJC feels very, very personal on this anniversary, because it was the cornerstone which led to the establishment of us as an organization. So as a cornerstone pillar of what our work is, we have been fighting to establish more comprehensive hate crimes legislation at the federal level for a long time. We've also done a number of projects with local entities at the local level to make sure that we're attending to the different state-by-state opportunities to address hate crimes at the state level. But, you know, if you look at the 50 states and you look at what's happening at the federal, there are a lot of challenges to the way that our hate crimes laws have been crafted both on a state-by-state basis and at the federal level. There is certainly a lack of uniformity, and much of the lack of a standard of uniformity all across the 50 states, as well as the federal level, poses lots and lots of discrepancies in terms of how hate crimes are really being addressed from a case-by-case basis to a state-by-state, on a state-by-state basis. So for the last decade, AJC, along with a coalition of advocates, have been working very hard to try to bring some uniformity to at least a federal hate crimes law. And we were very excited in 2009 when the Shepard, Shepard-Byrd Hate Crimes Prevention Act was signed into law. As I mentioned before the passage of the Shepherd-Bird Hate Crimes Prevention Act, there was no single federal hate crime statute, and prosecutions were based on a variety of civil rights statutes or other violent crime statutes. What that act did was it increased penalties for violent hate crimes, broadened simplified federal jurisdiction, and for the first time recognized certain violent acts directed at individuals because of their actual perceived sexual orientation as federal hate crimes. Adding on to that, of course, the other bias categories that have already been protected. We're so excited because in May 2011, a federal jury convicted an Arkansas man of committing hate crimes against 5 Hispanic men. In the trial and the conviction of this individual was the first under the Matthew Shepard James Byrd Jr. Hate Crimes Prevention Act. And we're very excited about that. But again, the challenges still stand. We still have disparate standards at the different states, all across the different states, and there are a number of challenges to how we can apply. Fighting and winning the battle to implement or to get the laws enacted is only half of the battle. The second half of the battle is really training our local law enforcement, having the legal minds and the legal resources to help to prosecute these hate crimes, and most importantly, working as communities all across the country to help our communities to come forth and to report the incidences so that we can really work with law enforcement and really implement the laws that are in the books. If our people are too afraid to come out and report these cases, then they can't be prosecuted. So hate crime statutes and hate crimes laws are only as good as we're able to implement them and make them work for our communities.
Thank you. This question is for Zara in San Francisco. Hi. Another important aspect of this case is how, in order to build momentum, there really had to be significant alliance building across cultures and ethnicities, and not just amongst Asian Americans. Zara, I know that your work with the Council on American Islamic Relations has largely centered on the civil liberties of Muslim Americans, particularly after the events of 9/11. Can you talk about some of the parallels you see between the Vincent Chin case and some of the alliance building around the cases that you've dealt with?
Absolutely. The challenge with hate crimes is that they don't affect just one person. They affect entire communities. And one of the things that we see in history is that sometimes the target changes, but the hate remains the same. A lot of the violence that we see directed at Asian Americans isn't as different, or isn't very different from the violence that we see directed at Latinos, who are similarly sometimes accused of taking the good jobs and invading our country, as some might have us believe, right? Again, compare that then to the violence against Muslims, or even more troubling, the violence against Sikh Americans who are mistaken for Muslim American. I remember in 2011 there was a really frightening story of 2 elderly Sikh men in the Sacramento area who were gunned down outside of their home. These were grandparents who were out on a casual stroll in their community, shot to death by someone who we believe only targeted them because of their turbans. And so individually our communities are very small, and yet we're dealing with this large ongoing problem. And the only way that we make progress is if we fight it together, because the thing targeting us is the same, because the idea of xenophobia and stereotyping that transforms into violence targeting the most vulnerable in our communities is the same. I actually would argue that it's easier for us to build bridges around this. I mean, one thing that was incredibly powerful for me as a young American Muslim immediately post 9/11 was hearing from our Japanese American colleagues who came forward the same day and said, you know, we've been through this. We've been through what happens when something like this can be blamed on an entire community, and we won't stand for it. And the quote that I always share with people is something that really inspired me to stand up, not only when it's our community that's targeted, but all communities. It was from an elderly Japanese American in the Los Angeles area. I don't know his name, I don't remember where he is, but he should know that he's inspired me for a decade following. He shared that, you know, it's sort of a natural reaction to stand up against injustice when you are the victim. But where you define courage is when you stand up when you are not the victim, when you stand up based on principles, when it's not you that's being targeted, when it's not you that's afraid of being thrown into an internment camp, or not you that's afraid of a hate crime, but you're standing up because you know that targeting and xenophobia and racism are wrong.
Thanks. This question is for Mia, Leah, and this question is for Mia, Leah, and Wei in Philadelphia. This is my first time meeting with you guys, but I know both of you by reputation and from your work on the ground as organizers and activists in Philadelphia. I can't help but compare the organizing around the Vincent Chin case to what went down with the anti-Asian and anti-immigrant violence at South Philadelphia High. Can you talk about your experiences with that and any lessons or parallels you drew from the Vincent Chin case? Can you talk about your parallels you drew from the Vincent Chin case?
Okay. So my name is Mia Leah, and I'm a community organizer with One Love Movement. We're just going to introduce ourselves and then talk about what happened at South Philadelphia High School in 2009, because that was a catalyst moment here for the Asian American community in Philadelphia.
My name is Hayashi, and I'm from Asian Student Association of Philadelphia. And mostly Asian Student Association of Philadelphia, which is ASAP, all we do is to helping Asian immigrant students to know about our community and what's problem to the school and school system. So I think I cannot share a little bit about the South High School incidents. So for the people who don't know about South High School incident, so it happened to South Philadelphia High School, which is a school where I graduated and where I got attacked twice. On December 3rd, 2009, there's a violent incident against Asian students in the morning, the first period. And about 30 Asian students got attacked by the more than 100 students inside and outside of the school. When the media exposed the incident of South High School, and school first response, which is denied to victims, and which is they talk about nothing happened in the school, but actually there's 5 Chinese students who got beat up by a group of the students. And after that, we as a student, I was a Chinese student president in the South High School. So we decided not going to school, and we had a meeting outside the school and to talk about issues, what was happening to the whole day, who was the victims, and all of us came. That was the first time Chinese students and the Vietnamese students worked together, and also other Asian students who worked together to talk about the whole school's issue and what was happening to them before. So we can talk about the problem of the school and what happened to the school, and we try to meet with the school district and the school administrator, but they don't want to meet with us because they just want to let us go back to school with the dangerous place. But we start boycott for 8 days, and after 8 days after that, school begin to try to contact with us and meeting with us. Finally, we're going back to school, but our work didn't stop, and we continue to address the school issue, and also we filed a complaint with the Department of Justice and the Pennsylvania Human Rights Commission. Finally, we win the lawsuit, and the Department of Justice, recognized that there was a school for failure to protect Asian students in the school. So ASAP, there's where ASAP come from, and which is a group of the boycotter. The boycotter, we thinking about our work shouldn't just stop because of school safety. So we came together to talk about what's our plan to do something in the Philadelphia area. So we came together to organize as an Asian Student Association of Philadelphia, and we had a meeting with the students in different schools where Asian students at, and where the school is mostly violent incident happened to. So we also, we organize the students, we organize them, and we have a workshop to them to talk about the Asian American history in this land. And what's happened to the South High School, to Philadelphia Asian community. There's another issue, there's another incident similar like the Vision Chan's case. And since the Vision Chan's case was to Judy's nephew and Danny Chan's case, and also include South High School's case, it kind of like tell to people it's okay to bully Asian people. It's okay to let this problem to happen to Asian, but this is not okay to do.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to tie some of this all together. And One Love Movement's work is around the Cambodian community and deportations happening in the Cambodian community, most people being deported for crimes committed in their youth. And so, in Wei and I and our groups working together, we just think a lot about like how what happened at South Philadelphia High School was the catalyst moment in that a lot of the Cambodian American community had experienced the same thing a generation before. And so just knowing like how to stop something before it gets to a point of deportation or the school to prison pipeline or the school to deportation pipeline for immigrant youth. And so it is about building across Asian American communities, but also building across our issues. Like this is not just an immigration issue for us, it is also an education issue deeply rooted in, bullying and the model minority myth, but also building across generations and recognizing how we're all connected as young people and our elders, and thinking about how much we learn from our mentors too.
Thanks, guys. I want to remind everybody that if you listening out there in internet land, you can tweet us questions. You can tweet our panelists questions. Just use the hashtag VC30 and include your name, your city, and your question, and we'll try to address that. So please give us your questions. We're open. The lines are open. This question is for everybody. I'm just going to throw it out there. Just this past week, the Pew Research Center released a poll about Asian Americans that many people felt it just failed to give an accurate view of our community as a whole. We sent out a press release, and then other organizations also responded. But what are some other ways that we can push back when the media and other sources of information oversimplify the issues in our community? And there are many.
Well, I'd like to answer that. I take great exception to the Pew report. The Pew report was released with great fanfare all across the national media as the definitive report on Asian Americans. It said that out of all the ethnic groups, Asian Americans have the highest income, are the best educated, and not only that, according to this report, we are the happiest people in America. Now, I don't mind being a happy person. I don't know about you, Phil, though. You're the angry guy, right? Happy, angry, okay. I do mind when there's a report that doesn't tell the whole story. By presenting this model minority stereotype, it presents a monolith instead of the diverse community that we are with 45 distinct ethnicities and over 300 language dialects. We know that when we disaggregate data in our community, real barriers to education do exist. For instance, despite the model minority myth, actually over a third of Hmong, Cambodian, Laotian Americans do not hold a high school diploma. And only 14% of Pacific Islanders hold a college degree. And Asian Americans are unemployed for longer periods of time. And while the national unemployment rate is 8.1%, for Samoan Americans, it's 17%. These disparities rarely make headlines. And when they are hidden like this, then the needs of these groups remain unmet. What's worse is that this report pits Asians against Latinos, implying that Latinos lag behind while Asians have made it. What's dangerous about that implication is that the resentment that it creates and the scapegoating that can result. This is why we in KPAC issued a statement immediately about this. I am so glad that advocacy groups also did the same thing. We have also talked to the Pew Research Center because of our concerns, and they did agree to meet with us in person to discuss this. This is so important for us to have some kind of productive dialogue so that we can move ahead. And speaking out is the critical thing. For instance, when our own NBA star Jeremy Lin was referred to as a chink in the armor, we spoke out. I went on MSNBC to let the nation know how appalling and offensive that was, and that ESPN reporter was fired and issued a formal apology. But the most interesting thing is that weeks later, he did call me because he wanted to have a dialogue on what happened, and he agreed that he would not do it again, but he wanted to know that he wanted me to know that he didn't mean it for it to be an intentional kind of thing. And I said I thought it was really good that he reached out. I thought it was good that we could have a dialogue, that he would not do it again, that this was a teachable moment, and that we could move forward. And that's what America should be about, being able to have a dialogue, being able to move forward, being able to have a better perception of what Asian Americans really are. And so it is critical for us to speak out when there are mistaken impressions of us, when there are stereotypes like the model minority stereotype. It's just as critical for us to be able to come together and move forward.
We have a question in straight from the Twitter. So,